of entrance, well, tear, globe, and mushroom lights. The deck glistens with spotlights and floodlights. Back inside the house, they proceed to the dining room. Toloki covers the large oak table with a lace tablecloth. He goes to the kitchen and gets the cakes from the oven. The oven automatically switches itself off, and the cakes, or switched itself off when the cakes were ready. And while Toloki and Noria were frolicking in the garden, using some of the silverware and china that is kept in the dining room sideboard, Toloki serves Noria a variety of cakes. For himself, he serves only Swiss roll and green onions. They eat quietly for some time. It's a strange combination you are eating, is it not, Toloki? It is what I eat when I really want to spoil myself. It is not the kind of food that I can afford every day. But onions and cakes? It is because I am austere, like the monks from faraway mountain monasteries. Do they eat like that? I really don't know what they eat, except for those who have fecal feeding habits. The Agori Sadhu, for instance. But I had to invent a diet of my own that would mark me as an austere and ascetic votary of my own order of professional mourners. Noria does not understand what this means, but she lets it pass. She's enjoying the cakes, although in her view, which she keeps to herself, buying cakes is a waste of money. Toloki should have brought something more practical, like meal, sugar, tea, dripping, or paraffin. After the meal, Noria clears the catalog pages that Toloki had spread on the mud floor. They will come in handy again when she eats, or when she sits on the floor, since her shack is devoid even of a single chair or stool. Toloki stands up from the floor where they have been sitting and prepares to go. Out of the blue, Noria makes a suggestion that leaves his heart thumping at an alarmingly fast pace. Perhaps my ears are deceiving me, Noria. I'm quite serious about it, Toloki. We can live together here as homeboy and homegirl. It sounds like a wonderful idea, but I'm afraid. What will people say? What will they say about what? We come from the same world, Toloki. Our story is the same. You are my homeboy. No one else has any business in our affair. I will think about it, Noria. Think seriously about it, Toloki. We must be together because we can teach other ways to live. I like you because you know how to live. I can teach you other ways of living. Today, you taught me how to walk in the garden. I want to walk in that garden with you every day. Yes, the garden. There is much more to it than we explored today. Many corners that we have not seen yet. I love walking in the garden with you, Noria. We shall walk in the garden every day. So you'll come and live here? I cannot live with anyone but myself. That's why I decided to live alone in waiting rooms. That's why I decided not to have anything to do with homeboys and homegirls. I'm a monk, Noria, a man with a vocation. I mourn for the dead. I cannot stop mourning, Noria, Death continues every day. Death becomes me. It is part of me. How will they know where to find me? How will my clients find me, Noria? I cannot live without death, Noria. I cannot stop you from mourning, Toloki. It is your calling in life, and your clients will find you. It will be like relocating your business in life. Oh, in fact, all the deaths you mourn happen here in the settlements and in the townships, not in the docklands where you live. You will be coming home to where death is. His head is spinning. Does she not know? Does she know what she's saying? This Noria, this beautiful Noria, with the soles of her feet all cracked. This intoxicating Noria, surrounded by live and dead flowers. Suddenly, it somehow doesn't seem that important whether his clients find him or not. Is he doomed to be the first and the last professional mourner? Okay, I think I will end here because we don't have time anymore. I won't read from the other book so that you may ask questions or comments or whatever else. Thank you. In southeastern Ohio, well, you see, Toloki goes around in search of mourning and he finds himself in southeastern Ohio. And he arrives there on Halloween, during Halloween. Athens, Ohio is famous for its Halloween parades and things like that, and crazy and wild activities that happen in the streets, during Halloween, that night. So he walks around and he discovers some young men, and they have this conversation, and he ends up going with this man to his home, which is about 14 miles away from the college town of Athens. Should I be talking on this? Yeah? That helps, eh? Which is 14 miles from Athens. And he discovers this family in Kilvet. Kilvet is a village in southeast Ohio, which is occupied mostly by the Win people. The Win people are called by sociologists the triracial isolates. Triracial because they are descendants of, the Native Americans who have lived there all along, mostly the Powhatans and the Cherokees who lived side by side in that area. They are also descendants of the Irish, a lot of them indentured workers. Actually, the place was founded by an Irish guy from Virginia who was running away, with his father's slave, Hannah, and they found refuge there. They were given refuge by the Native Americans then. Because you remember that Ohio did not have slavery. It never had slavery. Although, of course, when slaves escaped to Ohio, sometimes they would be recaptured, and it would turn a blind eye to that. So in Kilvet then, in the 1850s, you had the Native Americans, then you had the Irish who found refuge there. Then you also had the African slaves who were escaping from the South, mostly from Kentucky and Virginia, across, well, what is now West Virginia. It was still Virginia then, just Virginia, all of it. Across the Ohio River, on their way to Canada, and many of them did not get to Canada. They found refuge in Kilvet. And then the intermarriages and sexual unions of the three groups brought about a new ethnic group, which is called by others, especially by the Caucasian neighboring villages, the Win people, which stands for White Indian Negro, Win, W-I-N. And when Tologi discovers the Win people, he's of course fascinated by their culture, which draws from the three mother cultures, African, Irish, and Native American. He's fascinated by their quilt making, by their various stories, the stories that they tell about their history and their heritage, of which they are very proud. They are proud, that they come from these three groups, And then, of course, in this novel, we using the quilts, because you see, the Win people are a quilting people, doing mostly, quilts that, the Irish things, patterns and designs, but also what they call African patterns and designs, you see. And then, of course, in the novel, we shuttle between the past and the present. The past looking at 1850, tracing the three groups, that became the forefathers of the present Win community. And then, of course, today we shuttle between, the novel is very contemporary. It's a contemporary story of the Win people today, but it goes back, of course, from time to time to their history. So that's what he finds. And of course, he continues his profession of mourning for the dead there, mourning for the Win people. Okay. Any other question or comment? Yes.
In the new novel, does his
Can you say that again?
Toloki's father was an artist.
Was it his father or himself? I don't remember. What was he?
His father was a blacksmith.
Oh, yes.
He did all of those,
Oh, yes.
you remember it's in your book.
Well, let me tell you, I mean, I wrote this book more than 20 years ago. And after that, I've written 20 other books. And then, well, not 20, but, I have 20 books in all, 10 of which are novels. 10 novels, not 8, 10. You see? So I've written many other books in between. I went back to this book to look at the passages that Renee chose here. And I was surprised at the things I discovered. So, oh, did I really write this? Because I've forgotten this story. Well, I know that it's about a professional mourner and so on and so forth. But there are so many details. The things I was reading here, for instance, I came across them as if for the first time last night. And I was amazed at what I discovered. But anyway, I do remember that actually I was amazed when you say his father was an artist. Yes, he was. I do remember now. And he used to create these figurines. And then, because I thought Tologi was also an artist, wasn't he? Yes. Who used to, I thought so too. Yes. So what was your question then?
Well, the question was that there were all these figurines that his father left to him.
Yes.
And they delivered them.
Yes.
In boxes.
Yes.
And someone told him they probably had value.
Yes.
And I kept expecting him to find a way to earn money.
Oh, yes. Well, he doesn't think in terms of enriching himself, I suspect. Well, I don't know. I think his vocation is almost, although it's an invented one, it's almost a spiritual one. You know, his own invention of spirituality and so. I think so. Why? Because when we get to Kilvet in Southeast Ohio, we no longer hear anything about those figurines. I think when I was writing this novel, I had forgotten about them. Yeah, you see? But then again, art continues to play a role in Kilvet, but this time, of course, it is, the quilts that the women make. And then, of course, he contributes in making now his own quilts that, tradition plays a very big role in this novel. There's a big conflict, between continuing with the traditional quilts, the same old patterns, or those then who become, modernist or even postmodernist and create, their own things from imagination, which also actually become like installations, with other bits and pieces added together, which is what he ends up doing there. So art continues, but in different forms in Kilvet.
Can I pick up on that? The first thing I want to say, it was wonderful to hear you read this aloud.
Thank you.
I always knew you were a wonderful storyteller, but this also really comes out to hear a dramatist.
Oh dear, thank you.
And also hear it in the dramatic aspect of
Oh,
the too. So that was really wonderful.
thanks.
But what you just said about the conflict between old and new, I think in some ways we see that in ways of dying as well too, because Toloki in some ways is new
Yes.
traditional mourning, but he's also connected to social cats and to the rituals of his own culture.
Uh-huh.
So I'm wondering, in your own psyche, are you always challenged by the concept of holding on to traditions, but also trying to warm something new?
You mean in my own personal life? No, I'm not. I'm not attached to the past, and actually I'm quite opposed to rootedness in my own life. I would rather not be rooted, because I've discovered that rootedness, in many instances, brings about, the exclusion of others, and it also brings about a lot of jingoism that you find in many places. So I'm not particularly, although, I'm in love with history, memory. Even the novel that I'm writing now, I'm currently writing, has to do with history. It's set in 1880, so in South Africa. My interest in history is really on how that history has informed the present. Because, as you know, the past is always a strong presence in our present. So I am looking at that. But in this novel, I do not only look at how that past is a strong presence in the present of the Wind people. I'm looking at how the present day Wind people shape their past. Because we always recreate our past as we go along. We always reshape our past to palliate the present, which is what then you find even in that community. The issues of identity, sometimes which go to the level of being a crisis, and how then, they always recreate and reshape that past in order to deal with the present, to palliate the present. Yes.
Yourself in terms of the computer.
Yes.
And I wonder, could you go into a little more analysis of yourself in that way, and how and what you think is in those two processes, the handwriting versus
Yo. That would be a very difficult one for me. And my whole being would rebel against that self-analysis. because I feel that immediately I understand how it works, it may not work again. I create, I don't know how it happens. And I don't even want to know how it happens. As long as it's happening and that's fine. But I can tell you one thing. When I was writing plays and using longhand, because I couldn't channel creativity through the keys of a typewriter and then create there. The creative process itself was very painful. It was agony to create. No, to create, not the mechanical aspects of doing it. I mean, the mechanical aspects, of course, I just use 2 fingers to type. All my books were written with 2 fingers like that. Not the physical typing, the process of creating a story and a play and so on. So it would be that pain, and then there would be, that ecstasy that comes with that final period. Boom, the work is done. Then there's that fulfillment and joy. It has always been like that. But when I was using the computer, after the process of writing Ways of Dying, to my amazement, and don't ask me why, because I've asked myself that, and maybe a psychologist would have to analyze that. The actual process of writing Ways of Dying was very joyful. I actually looked forward to waking up in the morning to interact with those characters, Noria, Doloki, and whoever else is in the book, Nefelo Bodwe, and so on. You see that? And ever since then, the process of creating for me is nothing but joy. I feel very sad if I've left that novel that I'm currently writing for a couple of days and so on. I want to be back there to be with it. And that only comes since I started creating using a computer and being able to play around with it and so on and so forth. So that's only as far as I can answer that question. Because I've never really tried to understand why now is it joyful to and then why was it agony, when I was using a longhand and so on. So technology has facilitated my creativity a lot, and I use it, and I use all new technology. I'm an early adopter of, on Twitter, for instance, I paint a picture. Immediately I finish it, I post it on Twitter there. And some of my paintings are bought the same day. Somebody from South Africa says, oh, I want that painting. Then we negotiate the price, okay, and so on and so forth. All done through Twitter. And then, unfortunately, I can't mail it through Twitter. I mail the thing, via the postal service, the painting to wherever, whether it's in England or South Africa or even in America here. So I've harnessed all those technologies to create my art. Even my latest novel, actually. Even though we said my latest novel is The Sculptures of Mapungubwe, actually that's not my latest novel. My latest novel, that's my latest published novel, published in the conventional sense. My latest novel is Rachel's Blue, which is also set in Southeast Ohio, among the people who are often disparagingly called the hillbillies, well, I say hillbillies in quotes, you see, of Southeast Ohio. And after writing that novel, I posted it on Kindle so that people can read it, you know. Whilst I was waiting for a deal with the publishers, people are already reading it on Kindle. It was only after I signed a deal with a publisher, who will be publishing it this year, in fact, around October, that I took it down from Kindle. You see. So that's how I roll. That hand has been up for a very long time.
Okay. So I was wondering, now that you know the role that professional mourners play in various cultures, how do you think it could have been important to have professional mourners in apartheid in South Africa during apartheid?
Can you say that again? Now that I know that professional mourners are what?
So now that you know the kind of role that professional mourners play in different cultures, how important do you think it could have been to have professional mourners in South Africa during apartheid?
It would not have worked in the same way that it can't work, because it's not part of the culture of the people there. That is why I didn't even know that there was something like that, you know, something called a professional mourner. It's not part of the culture in South Africa. I only learned later that, there are many cultures in India, some cultures they have professional mourning, in Spain, in Ireland, and in old Egypt, in the olden days, in old Israel, and then in today's Taiwan, for instance, there are groups there, whose function is just to mourn the dead and are paid a lot of money to do that. All those are things I learned after I wrote Ways of Dying, you see. And why that would not have worked there is because we have a different kind of culture, which is called Ubuntu. Ubuntu, means sometimes I find it difficult to put it in English. We believe, in that you are because we are, or I am because you are. To say that, that's what you say. I'm a person because of your own personhood. It means that then, of course, you see, we have to work in community like that, you see. And therefore, if you are dead or your relatives are dead, we mourn the dead, we come and help you. If I'm dead or my relatives are dead, you do the same for me. You see. It would be against the philosophy of Ubuntu to pay somebody to come and mourn for you. It would not work in those cultures of South Africa, you see.
Thank you so very much, Dr. Mda. That was just wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think today has proven how wonderfully art can make a difference, because the readings that Renee and Dr. Mda chose really illustrate both the culture and the history, and I'm especially delighted with the optimism that you showed from those passages, thinking about being in a shanty, patched together home that becomes a home and then has all of those beautiful pieces of art and design and nature together, a way of looking at the world that is much more dynamic and hopeful and optimistic than what we might see from the outside. So thank you for transporting us to another culture and showing us beauty and light for that. So thank you very much. We have reception and books to buy and sign, and you may speak further with Mr. Mda and encourage him to come back and share again with us. And thank you very much for coming.
My pleasure.